Welcome to the Starter Girls podcast with Amy Lafitte
and Jennifer Loading.
And whether you are starting a project, you are starting a business, you are starting a brand, or starting a movement, we are here to talk about it. And I am so excited. We are actually recording this the day after Christmas. And this will go out in January. And I'm just so excited about this time of year. Like, we're about to go into 2020, like planning on goals and dreams. And so, Jennifer, like, what are you like the most excited about, like, this time of year and like day after Christmas?
Well, I would say I'm excited that the Christmas shopping is over. Thank goodness. Yes, Christmas shopping is over. But more importantly, I think I'm excited just to roll in 2020. And, the holidays are a lot of fun because you get to do a lot of reflecting and be with family. I think that's a great thing. But it's also can be a very stressful time because you just got all of the activities and the parties and the Christmas shopping and all of that stuff. And that's the stuff that just kind of wears me out. So I'm really excited to just kind of get past that and move into the new year. And we've got some great things happening. We've got an event coming up with the Starter Girls and a lot of fun things happening. So I'm super excited about moving into 2020.
I know. I love the time of like the 26th through like the 31st. I feel like there's so much reflection and like that to me like that precious holiday time where it's like there isn't any stress. Like there's no, other than if you're getting ready for New Year's or something. So, but yeah, it's just amazing. So, and I'm so excited about our guest that we have on. I know that she has been someone you followed forever and have learned so much from. But yeah, I just can't wait to talk with her. Like, I feel like this is such a special day.
Absolutely. I know we've been excited about this for a couple of weeks now. I think we've been talking about it. But you know what I thought would be really cool, and I don't know, we didn't quite talk about this, but I thought what would be fun because we both have done keto, and this is going to be like a great conversation, but I thought, what would be cool is for our Starter Girls Weekly Top 3, if we talk about like what are our top favorite keto recipes that you and I like our top 3. Do you want to start this?
Sure, absolutely. So I've been thinking about that, about like what are my favorites. So, and of course I initially was like thinking about all desserts. I was like, maybe I should have one that's not a dessert. So I'll say zucchini chips are really amazing. I like to cut them up really, really thin and toss them in olive oil and salt, and then put them out on a baking sheet for 350 degrees, 15-20 minutes, depending on how chippy you like them. So that is a favorite of mine. I have this amazing keto cheesecake that I just love, and it's like very simple, just a couple of ingredients, and so we can share that. And then I will say, because we have Maria Emmerich on, like one of my favorite fudge recipes is one from hers that it has vanilla extract in it, and then she has you do almond extract, and it is like insane. So that is like one of my favorites for sure. What about you?
Awesome. Well, Maria's gonna actually love this because all of mine are from her cookbooks.
Yay!
Every one of them is from her cookbooks. And for my listeners, a lot of them know my story that I did keto for a really long time, and when I first started out, I used her cookbook, and I think the very first one I did was that Quick and Easy Ketogenic. I can't remember the exact title. The pages are falling out of it, but the thing I loved about her books is that she had meal plans in them, and so I followed those meal plans like top to bottom because I had no idea what I was doing, and I did that for several months, and so all of my recipes come from her book. And I will say, like, my number one is those flourless brownies. Those are the fudgy brownies. Those are my favorite. I have used them over and over for events. Nobody knows they are keto brownies. Like, nobody knows.
They're never they're like, we have to like hide them like when we have our events, because like people will just go back for like seconds, thirds, fourths, and they will be like, they never make it all the way through. So we've even learned like, for like late visitors, we have to like have like a little secret stuff somewhere, because otherwise we'd be like, well, there were keto brownies, but everyone ate 5 and they're gone.
So that would be my first. I also love her protein lasagna. Another amazing dish. Love it. Would make that for my family. Amazing. And then there's so many. There's like the ravioli. There's the pizza with the cheese crust. The cheesecake with the chocolate crust. There are so many desserts and recipes in those books. And I always talk about, when I'm talking, to people about keto, I'm like, you've got to get Maria Emmerich's cookbooks. They are the best. So I could name so many of them. We could be here for a while if I had to talk about keto recipes. Love them all.
And one of the things I really like about her recipes specifically too is like, I can tell her nutritional background because they're very nourishing. Like, it's not just like, the goal isn't just like, oh, let's make this keto. It's like, how can we also like incorporate some things that like would really nourish my body? And I love that because you actually feel better after eating the food. It's amazing.
Absolutely. So, well, now our listeners know who we have on here. I'm super excited to welcome Miss Maria Emmerich to our show. I call her the keto guru. She knows everything. And when I talk about Maria Emmerich, I reached out to her back in 2014, somewhere around there, because I was diagnosed with a rare nerve condition called trigeminal neuralgia back in 2012, and I had suffered for 4 years with dietary issues because of all the medication that I had been placed on or was put on, and could not eat food. I had a terrible time digesting carbohydrates and sugars, and I was running a lot at that time. And so after doing several different meal plans, I went through Fast Track, FODMAPs, I did several different things, and just stumbled across this ketogenic lifestyle. I did a lot of research. This came in, I contacted her and I said, tell me more about this. I want to know more about it. And so she is a phenomenal mentor. I think she is very well versed in the keto world. I love reading her stuff, listening to her stuff. We also follow her husband, which is amazing. I love his story too. And so I'm super thrilled and excited to have you on the show. And so welcome, Maria Emmerich.
Oh, I'm so honored to be here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And yeah, if you haven't done any keto recipes before, I highly suggest the protein noodle lasagna. Most people, when they serve it to their family, if you don't tell them that, well, first of all, don't ever say, this is healthy, I don't know if you'll like it. Just give it to them and say it's lasagna, and they would never know that it's not regular lasagna.
I will agree with you on that 100%.
I love that. That's so awesome. In fact, that's a really good point, is like most of the time it's so much better not to say it's healthy, because then people have this preconceived notion in their head that it's not going to taste good, and I love that. So
I grew up eating really unhealthy food. I will always love food, and so I just like to make I like to make healthy food taste delicious. I'm not going to eat chicken breast and broccoli. I just refuse to do that. So I want to eat good stuff.
Absolutely.
That's so awesome. I love it. Well, and just to tell our listeners a little bit about you, we have these like rapid fire questions that are just kind of fun. And so I guess our first question is, are you a morning person or a night person?
Oh, morning. I've worked at coffee shops and opened them since I was 14 years old. And so I'm like up at 4:30. I like to run in the morning. I like to work in the morning. We homeschool. Well, I should say my husband homeschools our boys. And so that early morning is often my only time alone, and so I cherish it. I don't mind going to bed at 8 o'clock so I could be up really early.
Yeah, that's so awesome. Jennifer's a morning person
too.
Let me ask you this. This is totally off topic, but since you're talking about coffee, do you have a favorite coffee?
I don't recommend caffeine.
Okay. So no more. Even though you wake up and open up
We're on average about 8% for just about everybody.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Even though they don't want to recognize that.
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
But that was one of the hardest habits for me to break, because, of course, like I said, I worked at coffee shops since I was 14. I lived off of mochas, and that's one of the reasons that caused my polycystic ovarian syndrome.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I can see that. I know. They seem fun at the time to live off of, but not
later. I
know. Okay, another rapid fire question. Are you a cat or a dog person?
Oh, we just spread our dog's ashes yesterday.
Oh, sorry.
So I'm going to have to say dog.
Oh,
been there.
What kind of dog?
There she is.
Oh my gosh, so beautiful.
She was like a small golden retriever, and she was like the light of our life. We actually got her when my husband lost his job and our adoption had to be put on hold, and we were just so devastated. So she really, her name was Ohana because Ohana means family, and she brought us her family.
That's beautiful, Maria.
That's
beautiful.
Wonderful.
That's beautiful.
I know, they're so special to us too. I mean, I think.
But animals in general are awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
they are.
I can relate to that with you.
Yeah. Okay, this is going to be a really fun rapid fire question. What is your favorite food, since you're such a foodie?
I have it just about every day, a hamburger on a keto bun, a 0 carb bread. I have a hamburger, definitely with bacon every day.
I love that.
Yeah.
Where do you get the bun? Do you make it yourself, or?
Oh yeah, So people mistakenly think that this one recipe I made a long time ago has a lot of fiber in it, don't mistakenly subtract fiber. You will fail at the keto diet, and you'll be like, oh man, this is awful. I'm constipated. I gained weight. You want to count total carbs, and the true keto bun you can find on my website. So.
Perfect. I love that, because I know that's going to be a question we'll get later on. Where does she get the bun?
I've actually made her buns before.
There's nothing I buy. If it comes in a package, you have to think twice about it.
Right.
Yes. I 100% agree.
Products.
Yes, exactly. So I'd love for you just to tell our listeners like a little bit about you. Like, obviously we've been talking a little bit about the fact that you're married with kids, your home life, what your career looks like, maybe how you got into it, and also like where you live now, like all of that stuff. So.
Okay, well, all right. So to start, when I was 16 years old, I wasn't feeling well, and I didn't even tell my mom, but I went to the doctor, and at that appointment, I was diagnosed with PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome. She told me it would be very difficult to have kids if I could at all. She basically said I couldn't. She also gave me an antidepressant because I was pretty severely depressed. I had acid reflux really bad, so I was given a prescription for that. And I had IBS, so I was given a prescription for that, irritable bowel syndrome. Yeah, I was a mess.
Wow.
And I left that doctor's visit with a whole bunch of medications, but I never took any because I know this was fate. You asked if I'm a cat or a dog person. I had a beautiful golden retriever named Tiva, and she was losing a lot of her hair in big patches. And so I took her to the vet that very same week, and the first question the vet asked me is, what are you feeding her? And my doctor never asked me that. It was basically right then and there that not only did I change both of our lives and her hair grew back, I got better, but I decided I wanted to change people's lives without prescription medications. And especially when I help people with depression or anxiety, like I love it when people lose weight. That's great, wonderful. But when you can change someone's life and be able to make them, be happy again and want to live, like that's life-changing. And so I basically worked at a coffee shop, like I told you then. I was living off of mochas and whatever cinnamon roll didn't sell that day, or muffin or scone, I went home with. And I really ate all of them. And so I was twice my size. And like I told you, I love food. I will always love food. I just like to adapt those favorite things like scones and cinnamon rolls into a healthier version. So, I mean, food is comforting. Food is love, And so I want to be able to make, it was my husband's birthday yesterday on Christmas. And so I made him his favorite creme brulee. And I just make it different, But that's, I should keep going. Okay, so I met my and totally fell in love, and I told him that I probably won't be able to have kids. He's like, let's adopt children. And I was like, wow, I really love you. And so I was married before I could even legally drink, and we started the adoption process soon after I graduated college, but I was a rock climbing guide at the time.
Wow.
I went to school for nutrition, but I was going to be a stay-at-home mom. That's what I want. I love kids and being around kids. And so we started the adoption process, but sadly he lost his job. And if you know anything about adoption, everything you put into your adoption, if you lose a job and lose insurance, you start back at square one. And so all that money you put into it goes away. So we lost all of that. We lost his job. We lost our house and our car. I was so lost. I had someone tell me, why don't you start writing your recipes down to help raise money for your adoption? And she's like, you're going to start a blog. And I was like, what's a blog? Because this was before blogging was, anybody knew what that was. And so I started a blog with the help of Craig, and I went to the library and I started writing my first book, and I just started writing recipes and why they're healthier. I usually try to show you the difference in, calories and carbohydrates and sugar versus my version, so you can, it's eye-opening, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But it gave me a reason to wake up. It helped me focus on my kids, and, like someday they'll be here and I'll, be able to feed them this yummy food. And I don't want to cry. But like everybody just gave so much love back. They really liked it. They liked the food. They liked my recipes, and it went gangbusters. And before you knew it, we started the adoption train again, and we adopted 2 little boys. Our first baby did die of malaria, but now we have Micah and Kai. They're now 9 and 10, and they still help me with the recipes. They like making videos with me. And I mean, I'm grateful for the hardships we went through, because I'm so grateful for what I have now. And I know that there'll be hardships ahead of me, and we still have some illnesses in our family that make things difficult. But one of the questions you sent me ahead of time is, what would you tell your younger self? And my answer was that most of the time when things don't happen as planned, they turn out better.
That's awesome.
Because they really do. And I was such a planner. I would get upset when things wouldn't go my way. But now I'm just like, okay, what do you have for me now? I mean, because I'm ready for it. But we live in Wisconsin right now, but we leave we live in Maui in the wintertime because it's very cold here. So I can work from wherever, so we kind of do that. So
that's wonderful. Interesting too that you were just talking about, just kind of living in the moment there. And it's funny because this morning I did a live feed and I was talking about stop chasing perfection. Like, we spend so much time, however you want to say this, putting our ducks in a row. And the problem with that is that sometimes the conditions are never right to do things. Like, sometimes you just have to be brave and just say, I'm going to roll with it, and whatever happens, happens, and I'm going to adapt to it and learn and just go with something, And so I think that's great. I love your story, and I love watching everything you do. And I follow you all the time, and you're traveling all the time, and I know that you like to do a lot of fun things. I want you to share some of these fun things you do, because my husband brought up the other day, he said she's a bow hunter. So we follow you. He pays attention.
With that though, you asked me what are my favorite hobbies, and anything outside really. But yes, I try to keep the bow hunting not a secret, but I get a lot of haters. People think it's cruel. It's not cruel. It's the most humane way to feed my family. But yeah, I sit right out there. My stand is, we have a lot of land out here, and I hunt, and I don't hunt with a gun, just a bow, so it makes it much more difficult. And I just like to sit out in nature and watch the animals, and I respect the animals, and I only take what we need for the season to eat. And I also love, if you see my Facebook wall, I like to paddleboard with the whales, with the humpback whales. They call me the whale whisperer in Maui, because I'll be out on a paddleboard and these humpbacks like come up and touch my paddleboard, and I'm like, whoa, this is just unreal. Yeah. They're just little big gentle giants, and I love that. But I love to kayak and fish and swim, and I run every day. Even when it's 20 below zero, I'm still out there. When I'm outside in nature, I feel alive.
Right. I love it. And you've done some marathons, am I correct?
Yeah, that was before kids. Yeah. I feel healthier now that I don't run them.
Sure.
Because I give time for lifting weights and yoga, and I was pretty worn down when I was doing those. I mean, it takes a lot on your body,
Mm-hmm. It does. Well, and interestingly, our last podcast that we aired out on Tuesday, we interviewed my husband, and he's done like 24 100-mile races, and we were just talking about that. I think that was one of the questions Amy brought up, was about the time, how much time you commit to this. And I'm also a former marathon runner, so I know the time that it requires to do all of that, and I'm with you. It's more about, for me, peace and sanity. I really just like to exercise, so I feel great and I'm healthy, and I just don't have the energy to consume that amount of time, I just to put into that for that running. And also I get bored after a while. It's like I want to be doing different things.
I don't go to the gym anymore. When I lift weights, I'm walking with my kids, and I'll lift weights with my, as we walk and talk, and I try to make everything fun because life is short. I don't want to be a gym rat, but I do want to work out, and so I make sure I'm doing it in an environment that I love, like outside. And I just try to make everything a little bit more fun.
Yeah. I think that's important, for sure.
I love it.
Yeah. I had a question I wanted to ask you really quick. How do you create your recipes?
Well, I think about all of the things that I loved as a kid in my former heavy life. The protein noodle lasagna came from, we always had lasagna on my birthday. It was my favorite food, and so I was like, I'm not giving this up. I'm just gonna make it without the noodles, and so I just used these protein noodles instead. It makes it easier than making the regular lasagna. But all the scones I made in my past life, this was before almond flour and coconut flour were really, now you can buy that at Sam's Club, but before this was very popular, that's what I was using, and so you'd have to order it online or look for it, but people really open to it because, I work with type 1 diabetics, all different types of people that really need to cut the carbohydrates out, whether it be epilepsy or, whatever that they needed to do the keto diet for. So I would make my scones, but just different, and muffins, but just different. And, it's just, I guess I'm inspired by listening to even different podcasts, or my boys like to watch different food shows with me. Oh my gosh, one time we were watching Valerie Bertinelli's kids baking competition. And so I'll get ideas there. And then all of a sudden I had a message on Instagram, and it was Valerie Bertinelli. She was using my Keto Comfort Food book, and I was like, what?
Awesome!
They're like, Valerie Bertinelli, and so even her show gave me ideas, or I'll be at a restaurant. I worked at restaurants a lot when I was younger, and so whether it be your Olive Garden favorites or whatever, I'll just recreate those they're almost better at home, and that's what happened is we were spending, before he lost his job, we would go out to eat, and we were spending way too much money going out to eat. And one way we saved money was starting to do date nights at home. And we would recreate our favorite, whether it be, Chinese takeout or Olive Garden classics or whatever. We made them at home, and I think they taste better.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Like I said, it's so nourishing when you're eating it, and just the fresh ingredients.
And you don't feel bad, like you said. And that's the thing, I love that people are venturing into the keto lifestyle. However, I'll say most things that I read online, I bang my head against the wall. Like you were mentioning, my recipes will use nourishing ingredients. I use bone broth a lot. If you need to thin something out, instead of using heavy cream, I'll use bone broth, and because there's a lot of flavor in that, when I make Alfredo sauce or something. But there's this misconception that you need to add, eat 80% fat in order to be in a ketogenic state, and that's not true.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so that's when people get frustrated when they're eating all this dairy and nuts, and they're getting constipated and they're gaining weight. And I'm like, yeah, that's not the way you should do it. Nobody said you should do it this way, but they read different things online that say that you should.
Right.
Oh, yeah, and I will say when I started out, that was the thing. That's why I had done so much homework on it, was because there is a lot of conflicting information out there. And I know even and I think I even reached out to you in the beginning, because when the cholesterol thing is just, that is the one that drives me absolutely crazy. And I know when I first started this, all my friends were just on my, were there, and it was like, that's going to cause high cholesterol, you're going to get fat. And I'm like, no. Well, and Amy knows this. I even, right after I started, went in and had my whole blood panel profile done, because I had gone into the doctor, and this was probably about 6 months after I'd gone keto, and I was hardcore. I was counting macros, I was doing everything. Went in, my cholesterol was a little bit elevated, and so I go into the doctor's office, and I'm like, you know what, you stick to what you do, and I'm going to go to the get my blood work done, and I'm going to make sure that this is all right. And of course I went in, had the full panel done, came out, was perfectly fine. And so that was kind of like my solid proof that, hey, keto works. But big thing for me was when I was able to get off all my medications. That was the proof.
That's huge.
That
really makes me happy when people get that.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, ruining the environment with eating meat. No. Prescription medications.
Yes,
the environment.
I would agree with you 100%. Like giving me chills right now. This is like a conversation. Like we could be here forever. We'd go around about this.
I know. I'd love to know too, like, because it started out with you kind of writing cookbooks, I guess, initially, like you said, to raise money for your adoption. How did it turn into the empire that is Maria Emmerich now, and all the different parts of it, and how did that progress? Because I think a lot of people are looking at creating brands or businesses, and what does that look like as you were scaling, and I don't know, just some turning points that really helped you.
Well, I still feel like I'm just a girl in a tree hunting deer. So when you say the Maria Emmerich Empire, that makes me feel a little weird. But I feel that you have to be real and true to yourself, and I think there's too much. I mean, you see it on Instagram, you see it on Facebook. There's too much fakeness, and people see through that. And you mentioned writing cookbooks, but the big break was my first book was Keto Adapted, and that was basically just my story and all the lies we've been told about cholesterol and the low fat this and stay away from fats and that type of stuff, and cholesterol's bad for you. But I told my story, which I'm really a private person. Like I don't do my hair very much unless I know I'm going to do a Zoom podcast. But like I'm a pretty private person that doesn't, I'm not even a talker either. But when I put my heart and soul into that book, people responded, and it made me not feel like an alien anymore. It made me feel like it was okay to have problems, and PCOS is hard to deal with, and it was something that, I didn't even tell my mom, and I felt so odd and weird, and you can't have kids anymore, and it was really hard, but like everything I put out there, people responded with love and respect, but it's hard putting yourself out there being like, okay, you can judge me, here you go.
Yeah,
right.
Really, they were okay with it and nice, and I guess as for building a brand, you just have to be true to yourself, and I guess like I get offers to like promote different companies every day. Even the day after Christmas, you wouldn't think companies are online. They're sending me products and messaging me, and I would say I probably turn down 90% of them because they have compromised ingredients, they have tapioca starch, they have things that I personally wouldn't eat, I wouldn't let my kids eat. And so I have a few products that I really recommend, and those companies also help promote me. So, that type of stuff, I don't know if that's answering your question or not, but just, be true to yourself. If you wouldn't eat it, don't recommend a product that you wouldn't want other people to, eat.
Oh, I would agree with that 100%. I talk about this all the time. There are a lot of, because we had both been in network marketing for a really long time, and there are a lot of health companies out there that, we get hit up by companies a lot. She knows, and not probably near as much as you do, but we do get them a lot too. And one of the things I always talk about is these artificial sugars that you find in products. And because I know too much about the sugars, and it goes so far as like when you talk about like fructose and stuff like that, when I talk to people about that, the first thing I always say to people is, you've got to let me see the back of your ingredients, because I'm not going to recommend something to somebody that is going to, one, have that in there that's going to be high price, especially when you can go into another, a regular store and buy this stuff. You know what I mean? To me, that is your brand, that's your reputation at stake, and And I think it's whatever is important to who you are as a person. Yeah, you want to take on the stuff that's going to represent who you are. So I agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
I can get that.
I mean, people think like, oh, it's just honey, it's just agave, those are natural, and I'm like, well, arsenic is natural too. It's not good for you. I mean,
Exactly.
that sugar, that's all primarily made up of fructose, and fructose, sure, it doesn't make your blood sugar go up as much, but it goes right to your liver and causes a lot of fatty liver, and that's going to cause thyroid disorders, and like, so just because something is so-called natural doesn't mean like that's the better option.
Right. Yeah. And these are always interesting conversations, I think, with people when you're talking about, the fruit and stay away from the bananas. One of the things that drives me nuts being a runner, for so long before I went keto, everything that would be on the table was always oranges, bananas, and I could never figure it out, when I was doing all that running and I was pumping Gatorade down and all that sugar, like why I would be in the middle of a run and I would have terrible stomach aches and my blood sugar would spike and go down. I'd end up with a migraine in the middle. Seriously, I've had migraines in the middle of races. I would get them in the middle of a race and bonk. And that's when I started making the connections about the sugar and, and so I don't even touch bananas. I can't even today.
Does your husband do the ultra marathons keto?
Do what?
Does your husband do keto with the ultra marathons?
He has, yes. He does more low carb now, but I will tell you, and I don't know if I mentioned this to you or not, but he ran a race in 2015 in South Texas. I want to say it was in Brazoria, and that year we were full on keto that year, and he went there. I had made your granola, which by the way, you have the most amazing keto granola.
Yes.
It is like the bomb diggity. I talk about it all the time. I'm like, you want granola, you need that granola. It is so good. So I had made this like big tub of that in the crock pot, and I sent him with that, and the entire race. So he's doing 100 miles, which means he's got to stop and get sodium and whatever. So it was granola and pickles that he ran
perfect.
on. Yes, sodium for the pickles and the electrolytes and the granola. That year that he did that, he broke the course record, and that was his fastest ever 100-mile race, I believe, that he did that year.
Wow.
So it was such a neat thing because so many people were like, how are you going to be doing this? Friends that I knew were like, how are you going to run 100-mile on keto? Like, you have no carbs hardly. How are you going to function?
People that are winning those races are doing it keto, like Zach Bitter, and like they're doing it keto because you don't hit that wall.
Right.
The longer... This is why I love the humpback whales, because they are keto. They don't eat while they're in Hawaii. They're fasting. And I just love the keto lifestyle for so many reasons.
And I would agree on the running because I know, in the times when I was like that, I never had to worry about the bonking. I could go. I mean, my legs might get tired from running, but my brain would be coherent. And when you run, you know what that bonking feels like. It's just when you're in the middle of the race and you're done, you're done. It's like the mental capacities are going. Mm-hmm. And I never had that when I was on keto. And we did some of our best running during that time because you could go. I mean, and once that fat kicks in, like you just go. And you can go for a long time.
Yeah.
So I agree with you on that. And and my husband does. We both do low carb, and he still stays pretty. I mean, he's a meat eater. He grew up on a farm. Excuse me, not a farm. He will correct me. On a ranch in rural Montana. In rural Montana, they are still cattle ranchers there, and so he is a big meat eater. And sometimes, my kids were making fun of us. I think it was about a week ago. We came in and he had put thighs in the Instapot, and we realized we sat down and we're like, all we ate for dinner was chicken. Like we didn't even have a side dish. We just ate chicken for dinner, and like we did it, and we got done, and we're like, you know what? We didn't even have anything with us. All we did was eat chicken. My kids were like, what were we supposed to eat?
I mean, the last book I put out is the carnivore book.
Yeah.
I saw that.
That's because of my husband's Lyme disease. And so, that's another thing, like, variety isn't the spice of life. It's a recipe for disaster. Because if you think about it, you go to a buffet, and even if it's a buffet filled with keto stuff on your plate, once your brain gets bored, you move on to the next flavor, and you keep doing that, moving around your plate. But if you had one thing on your plate, when you're full, you stop.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you have another flavor option, and I used to do this when I was a kid, like I'm not hungry, but ice cream was offered, I'm going to have that, right?
For sure. Uh-huh.
But especially with like Lyme disease, mental illnesses, the whole carnivore aspect is really, really, like, it's the ultimate autoimmune protocol.
I agree with you.
Wow.
Yeah, I agree. Once you get the grains out, I mean, I always talk about that. Once you remove that, you have the ability to get your inflammation down, and that's what I think was so instrumental in my success. You know, Amy had asked me, we did a podcast early on, and she said, how did you, because I stayed on keto for about 11 months before I really saw huge improvement, but that was because I was so sick. Like, I could not eat anything without feeling like I was going to die. Man, I was just sick. And she said, how did you stay on that for so long? And for me, I didn't really see an option. It was, I had to solve this problem, because for staying on that medication, living that life was not the way I wanted to go.
Yeah, I like it when people say, like, oh, you can't be keto for too long or you're going to die. I'm like, well, 20 years going and I'm still kicking.
No, I believe you.
As all my kids know, like, they were not even on the growth charts. They're from Ethiopia. Wow. And in Ethiopia, they were so small, they weren't even on the growth charts. Kai was 1 year old, and he was so tiny, he almost felt like a newborn to me.
Wow.
And now they're at the 78th percentile. So I think that they're eating well now.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Well, and I'm curious, too, because I've heard a lot of different people talk about carb cycling, especially for women. Give me some, tell me, like, I mean, because obviously if you're just doing nourishing along the way, I think it's less of an issue, but yeah, give us some insight.
Are you doing what?
I think if you're just doing, you know, if you're eating nourishing food along the way, it's probably not as big of a deal, but I'd love your insight on carb cycling, or how you would not do that, and what you would suggest to one of your clients.
There's essential fatty acids. That means that they are essential. There are essential amino acids, which are essential proteins. There are no essential carbohydrates, so you do not need them. You don't need them for a menstrual cycle. You don't need them for any of that. Most of the time, women that have issues with their cycle are living off of fat bombs, fat fast, egg fast, and they're not getting their protein in. It's the amino acids you need for your thyroid. Cholesterol is what makes healthy hormones. It's not carbohydrates. And actually, in the carnivore book, I talk about all the different anti-nutrients that you can find in even so-called healthy things like plants. Yes. If you look at the first tomato, it looked nothing like the tomato of today. It was a tiny little thing that was so bitter and poisonous that you wouldn't be able to eat it, but we bred it and hybridized it to be this delicious, juicy, type of tomato. A watermelon used to be 2 inches wide in diameter and filled with seeds. Not really edible. Corn was like grains, or like this long leafy stalk. It didn't look like the corn of today. It would actually break a tooth if you tried to eat it. We've changed plants to be edible, and they still have oxalates and different types of, like if you talk about people with kidney stones or gallstones, that type of stuff, it's usually oxalates. And where do oxalates come from? They come from plants.
Yep. And lectins and
So, I mean, am I saying that you have to go there right away? No. That's why I write all these recipes, so you can like slowly get there. Because if someone would have told me at 16 years old, you're just going to eat steak now, I'd be like, heck no, I'm not even going to try. But it was baby steps. And for me, I'm always about, every week I like to think about a new goal. And it doesn't always have to be food related. It could be better sleep. It could be whatever it is. Drink more water. But, for me, it was just always baby steps. And like if right now it's cutting out sugar, that's awesome. Do that. There's plenty of options. Like you said, cheesecake is your favorite. Let's do that cheesecake instead of the sugar one. And then slowly start to make new goals every week. And that's what I did with marathon running. I didn't see it as, oh my gosh, I have to run, all of these miles. I was like, okay, I'm going to run 1 mile, and then let's do another one, and let's do another. I was like, wow, I just did it. It was easy,
Yeah.
I love it.
It's so good.
I love it. I know. I'm trying to think of all these good questions to ask her. So I have a question for you, and this actually came from my husband. He wanted me to ask you this. Uh-oh. So it's not a hard question because he's a thinker though, and he follows all your stuff too. So one of the things he asked me was to ask you, how do you introduce this lifestyle to someone when they're just not even? It's like this is something new to them completely, because it is different. And I do think it's one of those things, I think people have to be open-minded, and there are people that are just like, like if you're talking to somebody who's eating just plant-based diet, they are dead set on plant-based diets, So do you, I'm sure you find resistance in that with, dealing with different people, but do you find that people are more open when you go to them with this information, or are they coming more to you?
I would say it's easier to hear it from someone that's not in your family.
I would agree on that.
Because I have people in my family that would benefit greatly from it, but I think it's because I said it. It's not like my grandma I spoke in Russia last year, and when I was there, she died of Alzheimer's disease, and I remember telling my mom, Alzheimer's is type 3 diabetes. It's a diabetes that your brain is no longer using glucose for fuel, but it could run off of ketones, right?
Right.
And she was like, okay. And then maybe 2 years later, Maria, Dr. Oz just said Alzheimer's type 3 diabetes. And I'm like, I told you that years ago, but it's just easier coming from someone, and that's why, families will help me with their teenagers or whatever, because it's hard to listen to your parents or parents listen to their children. But just know that when you plant a seed in someone's mind, like some people are going to think I'm crazy what I said about plants and that tomatoes are bad and, stay away from plants and vegetables. They're going to think I'm crazy, but for me, I planted a seed. Like maybe someone's like, yeah, you have kidney stones, and I do eat a lot of vegetables. Maybe there's something to that.
Right.
And so I'm okay with being the crazy lady. Hey, I've been doing this for 20 years. When I first started talking about this, I was the crazy lady. But that's okay. I'm a stubborn German girl, or maybe you want to say a determined German girl. I don't mind being the weird ball. I am in many ways.
No, and I love that. I think even at the time when I came into keto, which was 2014, it was before it was even a fad. Nobody really knew about it. And I remember talking about it and getting so much resistance. But, I tell people every day, like I'm a walking testimony that it works. And so I talk to people whether they have migraines or anybody that autoimmune disorders, anybody dealing with some kind of condition that, we know that it works anyways, but especially these people that are going to the doctor repeatedly like I was doing. I lived 4 years of my life in and out of a doctor's office with them handing me enzymes and handing me this and putting me on, I was on opiates, I was on all kinds of different things, and their solution was always, let's fix the symptoms, and I always knew there had to be a better way. And so for me, I am a big believer that sugar is a cause of pretty much everything. And so I think getting that message out to other people is the difficult part, and they have to be open to it and wanting to receive it.
Too. Like I try to tell them, like, this is how I am in all aspects of my life. Don't focus on the things you can't have.
Right.
Think about all of the things you do get to have that are delicious and yummy. Don't be like, I can't have bread.
Right. Right.
Like, don't be that person.
Yes. You can have cheesecake.
I get to have ribeye tomorrow, and I get to have, like prime rib and lobster and like all of these, like, that's what we had yesterday, so it's on my mind. But like, you get to eat all of these yummy things that you once thought were bad.
Mm-hmm.
Like we just got back. I spoke all around Europe and Paris and Spain and Amsterdam and Germany, and people are like, oh my gosh, how'd you eat? I'm like, delicious, the best food of my life. I still dream about it. There was carbohydrate in the sites, like it was all good.
Right. Yeah. Once you know how to find the right foods, I just say if you follow Maria Emmerich's cookbooks, you will eat better than you. I will tell you that in my house, I think the consensus would be that we eat the best when we follow those cookbooks, because there are so many recipes in there. You will never get bored. You will never eat the same thing. And she does have amazing cinnamon rolls, by the way. There are some amazing cinnamon rolls
that you mentioned earlier. That's Halle Berry's favorite book, right?
Yes, we just saw that Halle Berry was interviewed. Was it the Hollywood Insider? And she was talking specifically about your cookbook.
Yeah, this was, she reached out a couple of years ago to me that she was cooking from it, and I was like, shut up! I was like, are you really cooking? And she said, yeah, that's why I like your quick and easy ketogenic cooking book, because it's easy, I can do it. And, you know, she's a busy working mom, and
Yeah.
for her to like that book, I was just like, oh my gosh, that was a couple years ago, and she still talks about it.
It is the best book. It's if you're going to introduce somebody to keto for the first time and you want to get them a simple book, there's good educational information in it, but the recipes are easy to follow.
Yes.
They're
My
super.
favorite in that one is, do you remember Flintstone Push Pops, the orange
Yes.
cream?
Yes.
The orange creamsicle push pop
Uh-huh.
in there.
It is in there. You're right.
Oh,
You're
that
right.
sounds so
There's a lot of really
magical.
good recipes.
Yeah, I
in
told
there.
all the things I liked as a kid, like I just make it different, and it's way better.
It is.
Yes. And that really is the secret, I think, like, you know, when you're looking at making those changes, since we are in that season of New Year's, it's not about quitting something. It's about replacing it with something different. So.
Amen to that, because like I always tell people, I don't want to cut things out of my life. I find it easier to replace it with something that's healthier, like a different option.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Mhm.
This is incredible. All right, Maria, we're going to ask you one last fun question, because I know we could sit here for a long time. Like, I could come up with I could come up with so much stuff.
What the usual ones are.
Yeah, I could come up with all kinds of stuff. But this is a fun question. If you could pick any superhero or character, what would you choose?
Catwoman, because I want to be Halle Berry.
I think you're your own amazing character, though. I think you're like really a neat person. You do a lot of fun things, and you're an amazing role model leader. I think an amazing business leader, and yeah, I know there are a lot of people in the world that are touched by your greatness and the things that you share. And so, you know, and I think it's great that you know, when you talk about being different and taking that and embracing that and using it for the good of others, I think that's what's amazing, is when you can embrace those qualities and just say, you know what, I know that I'm different, but my message is powerful and I want to help other people because I have a story. Boom. That's amazing, right? That's amazing.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. And
love
both of you had such a great time.
I love it.
We are super excited. Yeah, thank you so much for your time as well. And we would love, I think our viewers also would probably love to know, how can they get in contact with you? You know, what are your different platforms and ways they can reach out to you?
Absolutely. People are always like, I can't afford a book. I understand that. I lived off of the library and rented from the library. Ask your library to rent my books or whatever, or to get them so you can rent them. But I have over thousands of free recipes at mariamindbodyhealth.com. You can find the protein noodle lasagna there. I also have a website, keto-adapted.com, where there's a lot of carnivore recipes and things like that there. But I'm also on Instagram at Maria Emmerich, or if you're on Facebook, Keto Adapted.
Perfect. And we can put all this information when we post this. We'll get all your information in there so we can get it out to them. So we want to say thank you so much, Maria, for being on here. Like I said, you're an amazing person and you're doing great things. Yeah, thank you. We're trying. We are so glad you were able to be on here with us. So we are going to wrap up real quick with our Starter Girls mantra. But first, we do want to say to our listeners, if you like our podcast, please give us some ratings. We would appreciate you on iTunes and or our Facebook page. We are thankful. My headphones are falling off here. I'm trying to keep them intact. They're like trying to leave me here. It's a great day to be brave. You are not getting any younger. You might as well start now. You have the power to change your circumstances any day you decide. Let today be that day. Rise up and be amazing. Be you, do you. All right, thank you, Maria, for being on here. Thank you to our listeners.
Bye, girls.
Awesome. You guys take care, be safe, and be kind to one another. We'll see you next time.
Bye, everyone.